Good day, Exiles. Welcome back to Conan Exiles. I'm going to talk today about the major update that occurred on Tuesday, the 16th of March 2021, which completely revamped the Isle of Siptah and did some other quality of life and bug fixes and so forth. But the focus was the Isle of Siptah. So let's kind of look at the patch notes here. So a while ago, not too long ago, Funcom did sort of a survey. I guess they kind of figured out that people were not occupying the Isle of Siptah. There must be something wrong, so they did look at feedback during the period of time that it was from when it was released until it was just announced that they were going to do the revamp. So they've decided that there were a lot of things that were not working for people. The lack of thralls, the constant noise coming from wild surges, the maelstrom storm destroying buildings and leaving the map mostly unbuildable, and all this sort of thing. So they went in, they relooked at everything and how it all worked, and they just did a redo on it. Now they've added brand new NPC camps from major factions to small outposts and points of interest to improve the exploration experience. And they have introduced new activities at the camps to make the trips a repeatable experience. So now it's in addition to the normal way of getting workers and thralls to help you craft better gear and work more efficiently has always been you knock them out, you put them on a wheel of pain, and you've got yourself a thrall that works for you. Now they've added a new mechanic where you can now rescue caged prisoners to add them to your ranks. So those of us who don't really feel comfortable with the original thrall taking mechanic can now just be heroes, and we rescue our new friends and they come with us to our camp and do whatever we need them to do. Now, in my 2 days of experience so far, I've only been getting thralls that walk. So let me put it this way: thralls that walk who can fight and carry things for us. So I've gotten bearers that carry packs and fighters, different kinds. I've gotten named fighters out of those cages. I've gotten basic level 1 fighters out of those cages. And the big trick is to get those things home alive. So there's also a mechanic to loot corpses of scouts carrying valuable information that someone is willing to pay for. I have found scout reports, but I have not found out who is going to pay for the reports that I've been collecting. Still working on that one. So they've added a lot of very cool cities for the different factions. They have leveled up the vaults to level 60. They are much more difficult. They've added new enemies and new loot in there. The maelstrom is no longer destroying buildings, and they also removed the siege monsters from the maelstrom. So these things do not destroy buildings anymore. That gives us more space to build on the map, which was a major complaint. The surges have received a facelift as well. So instead of having a wild surge, these were these things where the electric bolt would come down out of the sky from the tower and open a portal, and people would fall in from the exiled lands to the Isle of Siptah, where you could capture them and make them thralls. Instead, they're going to add the purge, which does not require loud noises banging through your head every 15 minutes or so. So it's the old purge mechanic from the Conan Exiles Exiled Lands map that is now on the Isle of Siptah. You could still call in your own personal surge at the ley shrines. That has not changed. You still need Eldarium to do that. That has not changed. You get the Eldarium from going through the vaults. The vaults, like I said, are higher level and much more difficult. And the Purge also will provide fragments of power, will let you explore the interior of the Tower of Siptah. Now that part is exciting. That is very exciting. We've always been wanting to look inside of there. Also, they have added the official single-player offline mode, which will allow you to play the game during times when being online is not an option. That is great, because I really like going into single-player and messing around. And I don't necessarily need to be on Steam or on the Funcom live services while I'm doing that. They have introduced new moves to combat abilities with a sprint attack. And with the followers, we can now choose the following distance of the active followers from the radial menu. That is pretty much the summary of what they did. So new points of interest, they've got thrall camps, and they've got the interior of the tower. We'll go in there and look at that. They also talk about praying in altars for a powerful buff, as well as new vendors and surprises for you to discover. So I've been running around for a couple of days. I found some of the surprises, and there are still many surprises left to discover. I'm not quite done finding everything. Alright, they just talk about sprint attacks. Okay, so sprint attack is kind of like this. Let's look at this. Alright, so sprint attacks are kind of, you know, you're running along, you're chasing something, and then you want to hit them, and it just scoots you forward now. So that's what it does. And it does that for many of the weapons. Before it used to, you'd chase them and then you'd have to stop and then do your attack. So now it's a lot more of a smoother thing. You do need to be having a sprint in action for that to happen. And so it does work for most of the weapons. There is, of course, no sprint attack for the bow. See how you just scoot along like that? You jump a little bit forward. So it's probably going to be most effective against animals and people that are thralls. Not so much players. We'll have to see how it works, you know, what people are saying about that. But that's pretty much what that's about. So there's all the fixes, performance, stability, that sort of thing. So here we're kind of deep diving into what they mean by the new edition. So there are 3 new factions. The Black Corsairs, well, we have Corsairs on the exiled lands by the ocean, I believe. But this one, each one has a name. It's kind of cool that the camps have books, little lore books, and there is a kind of a rivalry between the 3 of these factions. So we have the Stygian mercenaries, we have the Black Corsairs, and we have the Accursed. Now, the Stygian mercenaries, I think, are the more popular or populous along in the map. They have different outposts and so forth. And for them, they are led by Prince Craxus and his fleet. They have made landfall on the northeast side of the island, and they're just here to, they want to exploit the island so that they can start up trade and so forth between Argos, Stygia, and the Black Kingdoms. The Black Corsairs are led by Nicosi the Ashen, and they have landed on the west side of the island and have begun making preparations for war with the Stygian mercenaries and their recent dominance. I guess they more like using this island as a pirate haven. So that's going to be their point of view. And then the Accursed, which is a really interesting concept. Those who were dragged by the devilish magic behind the wild surges, dragged through the outer dark, and being exposed to the other world has changed them. They live in the storm and they are unaffected by it. They have made dark pacts with the creatures of the outer void, selling their souls for a life of darkness and death. So this faction is very cool. They live among the Maelstrom monsters, and it seems like we were kind of looking at some of the interactions between the monsters and them. It kind of seems like those monsters might be ordering them around, just kind of when I'm passively looking at it, maybe projecting a little bit of my own story about what they're doing onto them. It was very fun to actually watch how this is working out between the monsters and the humans. New activities have been added to the camp. So besides rescuing the thralls from cages, praying in altars to get buff, and looting scout corpses and graves, you can also loot some bobbing for loot crates. There are tons of crates all over the place, in all of those camps. Lots and lots of crates to go poking through and grabbing stuff from. A lot of dyes, a lot of actually, I'll show you. Okay, so I will say that I got this greater question mark thing. I got this unstable question mark stuff and the lesser question mark stuff, all from loot boxes in the NPC camps. I have gotten all of those without having to have a Maelstrom active at all, or killing a Maelstrom boss. Just saying. So if you're worried about, how much of this you're going to be able to get, you can find it in loot boxes, no problem. We got new vendors and lore entries. I talked a little bit about the lore entries. They're actually voiced over, so you'll hear the voice of the prince or the voice of the pirates. And I think the one for the accursed is also voiced over, so it's very cool that that's going on when you're reading the story. The new vendors, now this talks about plural vendors. I found one vendor so far. If there are more than one vendor, I'm assuming that each camp has a vendor. I have only found one vendor at the accursed. I have not found a vendor at the Stygian or the Corsairs camp, so if anybody knows where they are, I'm more than eager to find out. So then we got the interior of the Tower of Siptah. So let's kind of look through some of this. Also, about the sigils, these are the things that you find inside of the vaults. When you're done killing the main boss, you go behind him, the door opens, there's a box, the sigils are in the box. They no longer buff you against storm enemies. Now they provide you with a buff. So let's look at that. All right, so my character, we went through a vault last night. I found a sigil, and this sigil is giving me an increased strength buff by 8. And it works like the sigils did before. If you die, then you will lose one of your buffs. I kind of noticed before that you didn't lose all of your buffs. You might lose one of your buffs or 2 of your buffs. It depends. It was a little random. But that's what we mean by learning these sigils that are inside the vaults. You can collect them all and get a buff across the board, but not permanently. Okay, there are new weapons, including orbs with new effects, armor, craftables, new NPCs and artisans, and other rewards. We have found some of the new rewards and some of the new armor. I do know that the placeables are bugged right now, and that's pretty much it for all the new stuff. The rest is all about fixes, combat fixes. So this is called a balance update. They reduced the XP gained from harvesting farmable items by 50%. They reduced XP gained from harvesting coal and resin by 60%. And they have increased XP from completing journey events by 20%. So a nerf on the XP gain. I'm not sure that that was needed. Server owners can always override this anyway, so I'm not sure that that was really needed. But I guess on the official servers, it was important for them to do this. Also, they say that black ice in Sipta is now protected by high-level monsters, making its gathering an in-game activity. Stealth is still an option. Fragments of power should no longer drop from the end of the vault chest. They can now drop as part of rewards for slaying purge bosses. I'll be honest, I've found fragments of power in chests, in the camps, and other places. So they may drop from just the one skull bosses or in chests nearby a one skull boss. So it's not 100% true that it's just in the purge bosses. They significantly buffed the 50 vitality perk from 5 hit points to 50 hit points. That's really nice. They say aloe is no longer needed to craft rough wraps. I've heard some complaints saying that it doesn't matter, that they still require it. I don't know. I'll leave that alone. And low tier Eldarium weapon recipes have been removed. So now the only thing you're going to get is Eldarium items that are the high tier ones, because the vaults have been rebalanced to level 60, so you're going to get items that are going to be valuable to your level 60 character. So that is interesting, and actually I think that is a good change, because it's a lot of work to get enough Eldarium to research anything at all. It's still 50 bars of Eldarium to research anything, so that's great. Also, another nerf to XP gaining from crafting wood, using wood and shaped wood to grant more XP. This is the map of Sipta. These are the camps that the developers have released this a little while ago. These are all the different camps that are available to go look at on the map. These big ones, there's 3 main camps. This is the Corsairs on the west. This is the Accursed right here at the edge of the tower. And then these are the Stygians over here on the east. And these are some prominent locations that are on the map. The rest of these tend to be, some of the larger ones will be the Stygians or the Corsairs or some of the Accursed. The smaller ones tend to be a little bit more mixed, more like these are the people who fell through the sky and have found a way to survive and set up their own camps, so they can be all mixed different races from the base map. Well, this video is turning out to be a little bit too long, so I'm going to split the video up and we'll have a part 2 where we will go explore the new camps and see some of the secrets that I have found. Stay tuned for part 2. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation. Please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, Oma Games. If you would like to see my live streams, please go to twitch.tv and follow Miss Oma. Take care, everybody, and I will see you next time.